Looking at a whole person and understanding that we're not just a heart or a lung or a kidney. All of our systems are connected, including our mental and emotional well-being.
Hello and welcome to Center for Victory's podcast of Your Best Day Yet. It's Center for Victory. We're here to help unlock, reinforce, and enrich relationships through personal and professional development. I'm Eric Guy, Chief Victory Officer at the Center for Victory. Today, I have a very special guest that just got to meet her, co-owner and Chief Wellbeing Officer, Elise Wagner from the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy. I'm really pumped about this. Actually, a little maybe too excited. We talked even 15 minutes before we got on here about all kinds of things, share some stories. I'm sure we're going to have you back at least, but let's open it up with actually your story and what you do so everybody knows, because everybody needs to hear what you are about to say.
Thank you. Oh, I appreciate that. I'm excited to be here as well. So thank you so much for having me on. And yeah, however we collided together on like LinkedIn, I'm glad that we did. So, and hi to everyone. So by title, right? And I know we've got a lot of leaders listening, and one of my mantras is to lead without a title. And I do have a title that I go by at the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy, which is Chief Wellbeing Officer. So I love your title as well, Chief Victory Officer. We need to have more victories, more wins, and focusing on that and well-being as well. So, and I'm the co-founder as well. And what the functional medicine coaching is, I should probably share a little bit about that. So if anyone is new to the term functional medicine is really, when we look at it, a philosophy. It's a way of thinking and a way of being. It is a systems-based approach. So it takes into consideration mind, body, spirit, the biopsychosocial elements of looking at a whole person and understanding that we're not just a heart or a lung or a kidney. All of our systems are connected, including our mental and emotional well-being. Everything is connected. Functional medicine is evidence-based, and it's based in science. So when I say we, I mean me and my partner, Dr. Sandra Scheinbaum, who has been a clinical psychologist for over 40 years. When we founded the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy together, we actually came together with very similar visions, values, and just passion and zest. And we saw a gap in healthcare. And the gap that we saw, and that I personally experienced, and I'll share that in a second, the gap that we saw was there's a lot of well-meaning, well-intentioned practitioners and providers that are extremely knowledgeable. And they're doing what they know how to do best, which is treat, prescribe, and diagnose. And a lot of the times this looks like a directive. Do this, don't do that. Or it's, given in a form of advice to their patients or to their clients. And what we saw, what I personally experienced, and I'm sure many of you listening might have experienced as well, is that there was this gap between what the provider was telling the patient or the client what to do, and then what the client was actually going and doing once they stepped out of that office. And we know that 80 or 90% of health happens outside of the doctors or whoever you're seeing their office, right? And so we wanted to close that gap. We wanted to bridge that gap. And what I'm going to share too many stories, if that's okay, of what
Yes,
got
absolutely. Yes, because I was just going to ask.
Yeah, because I didn't just, drop into this field. I'll share my first story that happened just about 11 years ago when I was around 23, 24 years old. And I was in grad school. I was getting a dual master's in holistic nutrition and clinical health psychology at Bastyr University, which is a holistic medical school in Seattle, Washington. And I have an undergrad degree in nutritional sciences as well. And there's a whole another story and reason is why I got into that space. But as I was in grad school, my second year of grad school, I got really sick. Um, Foggy brain, bloated, tons of GI issues. And my parents were so worried about me. They wanted to pull me out of grad school and have me go to the Mayo Clinic. We were nervous. I was starting to lose hope in my health, in my own body. I had dedicated my life to going to school to learn about this and how the mind and the body and nutrition and food and your mood and all of these, interconnections work together. And here I was sick, and I realized later on, okay, sometimes your wounds or your struggles, right, become your successes or your wisdom. And certainly this was the case here, or at least I'd like to think so. So I probably went and saw 10 different providers or practitioners from, you name it, regular conventional doctors, acupuncturists, homeopaths, naturopaths, and finally, when my parents wanted to pull me out and I said, no, I'm going to give myself and my body and my health one last chance, one last shot at this. And I'm going to go see a functional medicine doctor who also has a background in naturopathy. And I kid you not, Eric, I walked into this office. He had not run any blood tests on me yet or genetic testing or anything. He looked at all my lab work, all my all the notes from everyone else. And he's like, you have celiac disease. We're going to get you genetically tested so we have proof of this. And I'm like, what? Okay, whatever. So he went ahead and ran the test. And a couple of weeks later, I remember sitting in his office and sure enough, he came in and he said, you have celiac disease, which for those of you who are not familiar, it's an autoimmune disorder. So essentially my body was attacking itself, especially when I would be eating gluten-containing products. And so I remember sitting there with this wave of relief. Okay, we have a diagnosis. Awesome. And now another wave, which continued for quite a long time actually, was this wave of overwhelm. Because as I was saying to you earlier, here I am with an undergrad degree in nutritional sciences and now a master's degree. And now I had to really go down a whole nother rabbit hole to understand and unpack gluten and gluten-free living. And it's not just about the food. It impacts you on like I said before, a biopsychosocial level. It impacted my social life. It impacted, my pocketbook as well. Yeah. It has a lot of impacts. And I was reading somewhere, and I always screw up the numbers, so check the numbers here. But I was reading a statistic that I think it's about 60% of Americans have at least one autoimmune disorder, or maybe it's 40%, or chronic illness. And then a certain percentage, a huge percentage of that, either 40 or 60% of that percentage has two. So, we're not alone. You're not alone if you're struggling with this. And I asked myself that, there's no way that I could be the only one struggling with this, but it feels so isolating sometimes.
Yes.
And I realized, with the psychology component as well, the mental emotional space, we've got to have room for that, because it's not just about the food or nutrition. That's definitely a great entry point, but we also have to consider and create a space for the mental, the emotional, and the social impact that it has, and support people with that. And so I kind of made this wish, I guess, to the universe of I wish that you could clone me, or a quarter or an eighth of me, or whatever, of my knowledge, and that we could bridge this gap so that other people have the skills, the tools, the knowledge. I wish there was someone like a functional medicine certified health coach who had functional medicine foundational knowledge, functional nutrition knowledge, mind body skills and tools, like how to relax and how to use your breath and visualization, and even, just coaching in general of how to meet me where I was at, and also use my strengths.
Mhm.
What was I good at? And how could we start there, where a lot of conventional medicine and even psychotherapy looks at what is wrong with you and puts you in a box or gives you a diagnosis. And I'm like, yeah, this is not working. It's not working for me. So, and I'm like a provider,
Yeah, I
and this
know.
ain't working. So we got to find something else that does work. And, you know, um, fast forward, I had set this intention. It brought me back to Chicago. I met Dr. Sandra, and together we worked together, and then partnered with the Institute for Functional Medicine, which is considered the gold standard in the industry for training the medical providers, the licensed doctors. So we have an online training program that's 12 months long, and we train functional medicine certified health coaches that are, and I know I'm biased when I'm saying this, but they are the best trained health coaches in the world. And they have hearts of gold. They're extremely heart-centered people who want to serve. They are leaders
Yeah.
in this industry, 1,000,000%. And I'm very proud of that.
Yeah. And so you should be. I mean, I shared a little bit about my story. We've had a couple incidents there where we didn't know. And again, I'm,
Yeah.
being a mental health provider for the past, I think I've had my license now for 25 years. Uh,
Mhm.
it's kind of rough when you're out there and all of a sudden you just get socked with it. And it's like, what's going on with me? I started thinking to myself, am I nuts? Am I crazy? Is there just something, so you go down that rabbit hole. Um, but what you're doing is very interesting to me, and that's why I was excited to get you on, and again, hopefully have you back, because there's probably tons and tons that we can and should be talking to with people, if those are the stats, and I know they're high, but I almost meet somebody every day that I could talk to these things about, whether it's their diet, whether it's their health. But jumping back here, um, you're very, as a functional medicine health coach,
Mhm.
you're very, I think you said it, client centered.
Mhm.
So what is it that you're actually doing for people? I know you're that bridge, but can you explain that to people? Because I would have
Yeah.
loved to ran into you when I was having all this, because I felt, again, so alone, isolated. I knew what was going on,
Right.
right?
Intellectually, right? Mhm.
But I needed somebody to kind of bridge that gap. So would you mind going into that a little
Sure.
bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can kind of paint a little bit of a picture or two to share what that what that really looks like. So when our coaches come out of our program, they're ready to coach. They're confident, they're competent, they're compassionate. And what they do is they take this client centered approach, which means they're going to meet you where you're at. Let me kind of compare that to, this is just hypothetical, right? But sometimes, when you leave your doctor's office, or let's say you're seeing like a lifestyle doctor, a naturopath, a doctor of osteopathy, or you might even see a functional medicine related doctor. Oftentimes, there's a lot of lab work that goes with that. And with that lab work, sometimes once we get that back, we see that there's a lot of shifts in lifestyle behavior changes. 80% of our chronic, illness and disease can be helped with lifestyle and behavior, sleep, food, nutrition, real positive relationships, all of that. And I know it seems so simple, like duh, but that's been my motivating force. It's out there. We all know it
Yeah.
intellectually. Why
Yeah.
aren't we doing it though? Why aren't we doing it? And so what I have personally and professionally seen is that we get these results back, and sometimes they get explained to us in depth, sometimes they don't. And then we're left with a bunch of to-dos, you know? stop, like for in your instance, right? Like eliminate this, eliminate that, food wise, right? Go gluten free, go dairy free, go sugar free, sleep X amount of hours, start working out. And those kind of directives often, unless you have an extremely motivated person who on their readiness to change, they are like 10, they're super confident and they're motivated. If you don't have those three like ingredients that are super high on that, I'll just say it like a little scale, there's going to be something that's holding us back, and that's okay. That's totally okay. And all of those directives then fall flat. They fall flat on their face. So we need to bridge that gap. And what the health coach does is they come in because they can speak the same language as a functional medicine provider. They have a really solid foundational knowledge, and so they can understand what the 1 or 2 minute directive is for that client or that patient. And then they can turn over to the client or the patient, meet them where they're at, and really open up a conversation and a relationship about, tell me, I know this is what Dr. So-and-so would like you to do. Where would you like to get started? What's speaking to you the most? And so what happens here is the dynamic shifts and changes. Even though health coaches are experts in like behavior change, they're like behavior change specialists, we say, they don't play that role of the director. They don't play the role of the therapist or the nutritionist or the medical provider. They take a step back, and what they do is they create a safe, non-judgmental space that is, unconditionally, holding this client in a positive regard. And they basically allow them to step into their own well-being and own it. Mm-hmm. And to create a conversation. And what we see is that I've talked to a lot of, our coaches, when they're working with their clients, they're creating that space, they're talking with them. And for some things, let's just say, I don't know if they're figuring out food or nutrition or how to maybe start adding joyful movement into their life, the coach will ask the question to the client, and the client, can come up with some ideas. And if the client gets stuck or kind of hits a little bit of a barrier or challenge or a hurdle, the coach is there to see some blind spots, close some gaps, ask some other open-ended questions to further the conversation, deepen the conversation, and really allow that answer to come up from within, from the client. And we truly believe that the client has most, if not all of the answers. They live in their body, they live in their life. They for the most part, people know what's, going to work for them. And so that's just a little bit of an example of how the coach really partners with the client to support them on meeting them where they're at, where they want to go, and taking those little baby steps there.
So it really is a bridge between the client and the medical professionals that are on it. I mean, you're just sealing the deal and helping them along the way, really holding their hand. How often would a person like meet with their health coach? Is that a good question?
That's a great question. I don't think there's any, good or bad questions. This is a great question. So it depends. It really depends on the unique individual and also how the coach might have their services set up. Mm-hmm. I will say this. We recently did an outcome study with the Institute for Functional Medicine, and our coaches partnered with IFM doctors. So as the doctors are starting their first foundational course with the Institute for Functional Medicine, they get the opportunity to be partnered with a functional medicine certified health coach. So in a sense, they kind of get to have a taste of their own medicine, if you will.
Yeah.
And so what that looks like, it's called the Coaching Advancement Initiative. And we do this with companies and corporations as well. And we did some outcome studies with a cool company in Chicago. But for this particular, for IFM and these doctors and the coaches, they were given 5 coaching sessions, and they were coaching the doctors on the elimination food plan, which is, eliminating dairy, gluten, corn, soy, eggs, all that. And of course, tailoring it and personalizing it to that individual, which again is what also what functional medicine is about, is taking a very personalized approach, and it's not one size fits all. Um, and there was some statistically significant results within just 5 coaching sessions.
Mm.
Now, the coaching sessions can last anywhere between 20, 25 minutes. Sometimes I've seen coaching sessions. I used to run my coaching sessions up to like an hour and a half, because I like to talk and I love to hear stories, and I ask a lot of questions. So, but if you're dealing with a very high, like D person, very dominant personality, an executive level, sometimes they want the facts, Jack, or they just want, quick kind of laser coaching, etc. And so, I would say it's very personalized, but absolutely, it depends on what your goals are, what you're looking to do, and on what time frame. And of course, where your confidence, your motivation levels are, all of that. So,
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier, and I know some of this, but again, to reiterate for people that would be listening to this, the role of lifestyle in health. Are there tips that you could give somebody that they might hear and say, hey, look, I need to do this, or what they should be doing, or maybe just give
mm,
some tips about like lifestyle choices? You mentioned the elimination from diet, but what other lifestyle choices should we be making that would be good for us, that where we could have a good start, maybe get some good results?
well, I'm laughing because if I could have a magic wand, I think I would eliminate the word should from the English language. Um, my encouragement would be to turn down all the external noise. There is so much confusion, and I feel like there are, again, well-meaning experts
Hmm.
all over the place telling us what to do, who to be, when to be all this stuff. And that can be really frustrating and confusing and overwhelming for people. And so what I encourage is, how can you tune out? What can you do to tune out some of that noise? Is it turning off the TV and the news that's going on? Is it turning off some of the social media stuff so you're not so, not always looking at that and feeling challenged, or feeling, like you're comparing yourself to someone else? Um, so, and how can you tune in and turn up your own internal wisdom and volume? What does that look like? And really reconnect with ourselves as individuals, as leaders, as parents, as community members. Like, really, what is important to you in your life? And I am a strong believer in someone who is really in alignment with my personal values, and wellness, well-being is one of those. So getting clear on what are your values, what do you value in life, is health one of those? And I would say, starting there can really help, because I truly believe that, as we look at kind of like, I'm going to go back to the functional medicine philosophy for a second and kind of pair it in a sense with positive psychology. When we look or think about functional medicine, I want everyone to kind of visualize like a tree, big, bushy tree full of leaves. And up in the tree is where most of medicine lives. It's segmented, right? So you got your cardiologist, nephrologist, pulmonologist, yada, yada, it goes on and on. And then we get into the trunk and we get down into the root system. This is where you're going to find functional medicine. It, in a sense, is a little bit more broad and general, but functional medicine is really about the medicine of why, and asking that question: why is this happening? And what is it connected to? And it's really about going upstream and getting to the root, instead of just slapping on a Band-Aid or giving a pill for an ill. Now, I want to kind of juxtapose that onto positive psychology and just psychology in general, right? And we're going to start kind of at this end of the continuum, where we've got our behaviors or the results, right? The actions that we take on a daily basis, and what precedes those typically is feelings, right, and needs, etc. And then what precedes that is typically a thought, and then we get to a belief, and that's where most people kind of pause. And I really believe we need to go upstream just a bit more and get in touch with our values, because our beliefs certainly stream from our value system. And most times when I've spoken or brought this conversation up and asked people, like, what are your values? Most people are not 100% aware of what that really means. And that's okay.
Oh.
I don't think we talk about it enough in
I would
society.
agree.
We certainly
Yes.
talk about other stuff. We don't, I think that's one of the most, valuable conversations to have. What are your values? And even having that conversation around the leadership table or the dinner table, just making that kind of commonplace. So those would be kind of some of my thoughts and ideas.
Mm-hmm. What
Yeah.
What
Mhm.
other challenges do you see as people or even our society facing and to adopt some of these functional medicine practices?
Mhm. Honestly, I think one of the biggest challenges that comes up is accessibility. I think a lot of people think that functional medicine, functional nutrition is for the wealthy, for the famous, for the, well off, etc. And I want to break that stigma around functional medicine. And I really 1,000,000%, granted, the supplements, the lab testing, like all of those kind of things, those, they are not covered by insurance, which is a huge bummer for right now. But I think as we make more advancements in the field of functional medicine and health coaching, eventually we'll get there. I just did a post the other day about how health coaches can truly serve the underserved.
Mm-hmm.
And there are plenty of ways to do that and to make functional medicine accessible to all, because and that goes across all socioeconomic classes, whatever environment, background, culture you're coming from. At the end of the day, we're all humans. And health and well-being, again, it doesn't have to just be around food or nutrition. It could just be shifting a not so serving thought to a more positive, uplifting thought, or choosing, I'm going to have, I'll just say, for example, I'm going to choose, I'll probably get some rebuttal on this. I'm totally ready for it. Just
Okay.
work with me on this one.
It's okay.
I'm thinking about everyone as a whole here. Not everyone can go to like Whole Foods and get an organic salad, right? Some people, the reality is that they are going to their local 7-Eleven or Supermart, the gas station, and so maybe that's a choice right there of like, I'm not going to eat the ho-hos. Maybe I'm going to choose like a beef stick instead, or something that has some protein. Granted, like I said, we could argue all day long, but it's the tiny shifts and it's the changes. And I think what it really comes back to is it's the choices. And again, our choices come from our belief systems, which stem from our values. So
that was a great answer. Great answer. That was
okay.
yeah. That
Thank
was
you.
yeah. I mean, it's for yeah. So, anyhow, I
Yeah.
know we're winding down here. And again, I'd love to have you back. I've wrote down so many different things that we could talk about just to get into and be a little bit more specific in areas, and hopefully you'll enjoy it and come back because I think this is great benefit. But if there were any like key takeaways that you would tell people, do this, kind of right out of the gate. What would those things be?
Well, it's interesting because I really don't try to or like to give anyone advice and tell anyone what to do, who to be. I would just provide the encouragement of something along the lines of that you truly can be your best health advocate, and you absolutely can own your health and well-being and make choices and decisions that are going to serve you, serve your family. That choice is up to you, not anyone else. So I just want to remind people that that choice comes from within, and to lead with that, even though it might feel scary or intimidating, just listen to that voice. And every time you listen to that voice, you're going to flex that little muscle. It's going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. So.
Wow, awesome. Very good. Before we wrap this up, can you let everybody know how to get in touch with you? Is it
Sure.
okay to share your information?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I encourage people to do so. You can head over to functionalmedicinecoaching.org. And if you're on the website, also you can find me on LinkedIn and on Instagram. And you can head over to Functional Med Coach on Instagram or Elise underscore Wagner, and you'll find me. Connect with me. I love connecting with people and just supporting however I can. And I would say that if you wanted to, you absolutely could email me. My email is Elise, ELYSE, at long email, functionalmedicinecoaching.org. If you wanted to talk more about, what it looks like to either become a coach, work with a health coach, even bring coaches into your corporation to serve and support your teams.
Yeah.
Because
Great website too, by the
health
way.
is our wealth, right? So absolutely.
Well, let's close it with that. That is a great last tip. Health is well. I will get behind that 100%. Thank you so much for coming and doing this. I hope that we can have you back because it's just a wealth of information to be sharing with people. I think people need to hear this, and I think we need to continue to help people hear it and and share information like this. So thanks, Elise. I really appreciate you being on the show. That's all for today, folks. Thanks for watching, listening. Really appreciate it if you'd hit that subscribe button as well as the bell icon so you get notified the next time we post. You can visit our website at centerforvictory.com. And just remember, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, make this your best day yet. See you soon.